So before we get underway with our next episode, we want to let you know about a new program that we are about to launch.
That's right, and it's specifically for new or emerging leaders. So, typically people who are in their first 5 years in a leadership or a managerial position.
Yeah, and the reason why we've created this is because we think that they're the most underinvested group in a business or an organisation.
That's right, and they have the biggest impact, Jan, in terms of the team and the organisation, actually.
Yeah, they're kind of like forgotten, and they're being squeezed from the top and also squeezed from the bottom. So what we'd love for you to do is to go to our website, which is called yourleadershipessentials.com, where you'll find more information and get on a waitlist page. And this program is only going to be for a select number. So we would love for you to jump on board.
Yeah, join the community.
Welcome to the People Leaders Podcast, the audio resource for managers and business leaders creating high-performing teams. Join leadership and team development experts Jan and Michelle Turkelson each week as they explore both subjects from every angle. Through practical tips, valuable insights, and compelling interviews with leadership experts around the world, you'll learn how to bring out the best in your staff and how to give your best as a leader.
Working the way you used to work isn't going to cut it anymore if you're moving into a managerial role or if you want to be successful as a manager. And the purpose of this module is to look at the 3 key areas that allow you to be successful in a managerial role, and they are about the thoughts that you have, which we talk about mindset shifts, out of the behaviours that you demonstrate, and also the tools and the strategies that you use. So it's one of these 3 areas that are either going to be lacking if you're not moving forward as a manager, and if you can combine each of these 3 areas and work well in them, you're going to do really well in stepping into a managerial role.
We want to start off by conveying a couple of stories from clients. And when we talk about these stories and these clients, I want you to think about 3 things. First of all, what are the mindset shifts that these people had to move into? What new behaviours did they need to embody? And also what strategies and tools they used. So one of the first stories I wanted to share is someone who was part of a team was promoted in that team. So now she became the new manager, and she was finding it very difficult to create certain boundaries around,
because she was used to being a member of the team.
Exactly. And so she went from this fellowship to a leadership position, and she was finding it really uncomfortable and unsettling. And what we decided as a good strategy for her is to have a team meeting and set up a clear expectation and be really open and honest with her team about what it is that she was experiencing, the fact that she wanted to be the best manager she could be, but she could only do that with everyone's buy-in. And we set it up so at the very beginning she had that clear conversation, and then we set up certain strategies about when you ask for support or when you ask someone to do something that you do get agreement, and if not, what would be the outcome. So from the very beginning, everyone was clear about how they would proceed. Yeah,
because that must be really tricky, not only for the person who's stepping into a manager's shoes, but also her colleagues. It's almost like, so do I treat you differently now? And you'll have a say in my performance review. So I think setting those expectations up front is a great idea, Jen.
And so the second story that I wanted to just share was with a client who was promoted, and now they were managing a team, and he was used to going to his manager and problem solving, so going to his manager with problems, and the manager loved it because they felt a sense of satisfaction and serving, the team members. So he was now in a position where he was a manager, and the person that he used to go to a lot wasn't available as much because they were promoted, and so he was left in a position where he had to problem solve, and he felt a little bit unsteady and unstable, hence why he got coaching. And so he had to move from sitting back into stepping forward. And some of the questions that he would then ask himself is, if my manager was here, what would they want to know? How would they deal with it? And then from that perspective, so taking that mindset into the new situation, and even though he felt uncomfortable, it was taking tiny steps, to get into that stepping forward, being proactive.
And when I think about the people that I've coached over the years, Jan, one of the key issues that people have when stepping into a managerial role is this issue of delegation. And a lot of them make the assumption, my team's busy too, I couldn't delegate. But it is an assumption, because a lot of people who do want to get ahead in their career are happy to take on extra work. And so what we did is we had a bit of a brainstorm. Well, firstly, the person had to decide, am I prepared to release some of this work if somebody else is willing to take it on? So there was that was a real mindset shift for that person. And then came, so what are some of the behaviours that I would have to embody? And we brainstormed the idea of, are there some low risk jobs that you could, or tasks that you could hand over? Are there some tasks that others in the team might enjoy? So we had a list of those, and then it was about setting it up so that the handover could take place, rather than just saying, okay, here's the file and leave it at that. You really need to have a good handover. And I think one of the most important questions to ask yourself if you are going to consider delegating is, is this the best use of my time? And could someone else do the job to 80% as well as I could? And I think they're sort of good questions to ask yourself.
So let's go into a little bit more detail about mindset shifts. And when we talk about mindset shifts, we're actually talking about broadening your perspective and your way of viewing and thinking about your job and your role
as a manager. So this is all about your thinking, basically.
So you're moving from a technician into a manager. And so these are some of the areas that we need to master. So you're going to go from things like doing to delegating, my team to organisation, job expertise, emotional intelligence. And we're going to step through each and every one of them so you can get an understanding whether or not you're on track with these mindsets or off track with these mindsets. So the first one is from doing to delegating. So as a technician, you would have been really good, and that's usually why people get promoted. However, when you step into this managerial role, part of your requirement is to start delegating, because this is going to determine to a large degree your effectiveness as a manager. And the quality of your work will also depend on your ability to properly delegate.
And Jan, what I would say is that if you can delegate properly, you will multiply your productivity.
That's right. And so the sooner in your planning process that you can detect overload, either yours or someone else's, the more effective you'll be in correcting the problem.
And basically, you just can't expect to do everything yourself now when you step into a managerial role.
Yeah, you can waste a lot of time trying to master something that you are not very good at. Delegating properly, to the right person with the right skills is one of the most important skills that you can
have as a manager.
Yeah. So when you delegate, you're assigning another person a task to do and the authority to do it. Even though you do not hand over your personal accountability, that stays with you. You're handing over the responsibility
to do the task. Okay, so let's have a look at the next one, Jen.
And this is the short view as opposed to the long view. So the short view is dealing with the detail, a specific task, beginning to end. as a manager, your mindset needs to take on that conceptual view, the long view, the big picture. Some of the terminology is the balcony view or the 30,000-foot view. So as a thought process or a mindset shift, one of the ways that you can start to develop this is looking at a piece of work and thinking, who else will this service? What will they need and what will they use it for? And in 3 months, 6 months' time, is this going to be useful? So there's some of the questions that you can
And
look
is
at.
there a better way that we could do this piece of work? So that's not just getting in there and doing the work, which is short term. It's looking at it from all different perspectives.
The next mindset shift is from telling to coaching. Now, a lot of managers actually still have the mindset of I tell my team and my team members what to do.
And actually, Jen, a lot of people like to be told what to do. It's easy if they can be told what to do. However, they're not going to grow and the team isn't going to be as effective as it can be.
Yeah, and that's taking a long-term view.
Yeah, true.
So there are going to be times when you need to be telling people what to do. So 4 times of increased change, when you're hunkering down and you have to get things done in really, really tight time frames for a short period of time, telling may be appropriate. But as a new manager, it's understanding those nuances. So if you can, get into that mindset shift of coaching, and coaching is all about handing over responsibility for people. It's questioning, it's acknowledging
And supporting.
And so the catchphrase of a manager is, what do you need from me? How can I support you? Because then the responsibility is handed back to them. They really need to check in with themselves and see what they actually need to do the job. So that's a complete mindset shift of start to ask more questions. The next mindset shift is from sitting back to stepping forward. As a technician, you would have been doing your work and completing your tasks and not perhaps seeing the broader perspective of how can this piece of work plug into the next person's piece of work, and how can I proactively change the way that we're doing things for the betterment of my stakeholders, my team? Could it be done efficiently?
So this is all about taking initiative. When we say stepping forward, it is about taking initiative. And taking initiative requires a different level of thinking. It is about looking at, okay, could I help somebody in another area? Is there something that I could volunteer for? Is there something that I could recommend? It's not just seeing things happening within the team and thinking, oh, you know, I'll let that one go. It is about actually, I'm going to try and change that. So sitting back to stepping forward is all about taking initiative.
And thinking, start to be aware of particular tasks and activity in your team that other people can then step forward and be more proactive. So again, it's about shifting your perspective. As a new manager, you will now need to give and receive feedback. So before, I imagine most employees would be receiving feedback on their performance, etc. Now the tables are turned. You actually have to give it and receive it. And for some of us, this is going to be a little bit of a challenge, especially if you have a high feeling preference. And perhaps if you've got a high thinking preference, you may not take people's values into consideration when you're critiquing them. So the mindset shift is start to be aware of looking out for actions and behaviours in your team that you can commend them and acknowledge them on, and actions and behaviours in your team that need to be tweaked.
Great. So let's have a look at a responsibility to accountability. There are going to be tasks that you will always be responsible for, and there will be tasks that you will be responsible and accountable for. As you move into a managerial role, what you may find is that you are becoming increasingly accountable for the tasks that the people within your team do. So they're responsible, but at the end of the day, buck stops with you. You are accountable. Now, this is a mindset shift that a lot of managers move into and don't quite know how to grasp because they still feel that they're responsible. And it goes back to the doing of the task. And this is all about having trust in your team, making sure that they have the right skills and resources in order to do their role, and just keeping an overview of what's going on.
Yeah, and you can do that by checking in with them. Just have quick conversations about what they plan to get done during the week. Do they have the support and the necessary resources, and what do they need from you in order to complete it?
So let's have a look at the mindset shift, which is moving from task to people and task. This is what management is all about. It is about getting the work done through people. And that's why it's probably important in order to think about how do I balance the people issues and the task-related getting the job done issues within my team. Am I the sort of manager that is just focusing on the task, or am I the sort of manager just focusing on the people issues? Where is there a balance? So this is a really good reflection question for you to ask.
And you will know that by getting feedback.
And thinking about, so where am I spending most of my time? Am I spending most of my time just on the people issues and not focusing on the task, or vice versa? You really want to make sure that you are getting a balance between these two. Let's have a look at the mindset shift from my team to our organisation. Sometimes when we step into a managerial role, Jen, I've found people say, right, this is my team, this is what we're responsible for, and when we get data or information from another team and it's not up to scratch, it's all their fault, and it becomes a bit of an us and them situation. And at the end of the day, they're all working for the same broader team or the same organisation. And the mindset shift for managers who I have found to be really successful, and for those leaders who are very successful, is that they take, and it relates to that long, broad, bigger perspective. It's not just about my team. Of course, I am accountable for the actions that happen within my team. However, my perspective is I see my team as part of a broader organisation, and that's where I'm going to focus my attention on, knowing that I have a team, I have to help and support them, but in the back of my mind, I've always got the aims of the organisation at hand as well.
And you communicate that to your team so they understand the impact of what they're doing and how it impacts further on.
All right, so let's have a look at this mindset shift of fellowship to leadership. And why have we put leadership in there as opposed to management? It's almost, we put it in there just to show you that, there are elements of leadership that go within managing people. And when you are part of a team, you are a colleague, and it is about fellowship and sharing information, etc. When you step into a leadership role, a managerial role will have aspects of leadership. It is about using the coaching and the questioning and developing people and supporting them.
And having a vision and taking risks and sometimes standing alone because there aren't going to be people around you perhaps that are privy to the information that you are privy to now because you are in a managerial role. So it's actually understanding yourself and knowing, what do I need to do to manage my energy? What do I need to do to make sure that I don't get really stressed so I can lead by example?
Yeah. Let's have a look at the next one, Jan, the mindset shift from technical competence to emotional competence.
And it's pretty obvious. The technical competency is all about that task and the rational reasoning about doing a particular job. The emotional competence is about this socializing the intelligence. So not only can I get work done, I can get work done through people, I can influence outcomes, I can manage my own level of awareness and stress, and I can see when I am falling into the trap of being, stressed, single-focused, being a bit nitpicky, hoarding information, or being really overcritical. I understand myself that much that I know what my triggers are and then I know what to do. So the mindset shift is not just about the task, but how it is done.
So, Jan, if I was coaching someone right now and we've just seen this presentation about mindset shifts, what we're always trying to do is move people into action, to do something different, to be more effective. And so I'd get the person that I was working with to have a look at that list of the 10 sort of mindset shifts, the 10 thinking paradigm shifts, and look at, so, if I was to choose one or two of them and reflect on how I do think throughout the day, what are the thoughts that go through my mind continually, which one of those, if I was to focus on, would have the biggest impact in terms of improving my performance as a manager?
So, for example, it could be from telling to coaching. So I notice perhaps that I do tell people what to do a lot, and now I'm going to commit to being a masterful questioner. I'm just going to ask more questions.
So this is all about, so if we think of the mindset, this is about what are the thoughts that are going through my head all the time? Am I continually thinking, oh, I need to do this, I need to do this? What we want you to just start thinking about, you don't actually have to do anything just now, just think about which ones do I know, if my thoughts were a little bit different, would have a big impact, and then you can move into action and doing something about it.
Thank you for joining us on the People Leaders Podcast. For show notes and other resources, please visit us at peopleleaderspodcast.com. If you have a leadership or management question or subject you'd like covered on the podcast, please contact us at podcast@peopleleaders.com.au. The People Leaders Podcast is brought to you by the Experts On Air Podcast Network.